Welcome back. Now, the rift rocking Kenya Kwanza in Kiambu County was evident yesterday after Chama Kazi party leader Moses Kuria and Tujibebe Wakenyas Kabogo gave Deputy President Rutos' Kiambu rally a wide berth. This came days after the leaders clashed with UDA gubernatorial candidate Kimani Wamatangi and Rutos' running mate Rigathi Gachagua. The leaders who addressed a rally stayed clear of the issue but instead championed their bottom-up economic model. Our political affairs reporter Daniel Kariuki has more on the Kenya Kwanza campaigns.
Kenya Kwanza landed in Narok County Saturday morning. Later in the afternoon, they painted Kiambu County yellow days after a political tiff between UDA gubernatorial candidate Kimani Wamatangi and the Tujibebe leader Kabogo threatened to break the Kenya Kwanza alliance in the area. The leaders took a swipe at their opponents in Azimio, claiming they have no agenda for the country.
Kwa sababu sasa mashindano ni kati yetu na ule mtu ya risasi moja. Sindio? Ule mtu ambaye ni tapeli wa kitendawili. Ama sivyo? Mimi nataka niwaulize hapa Kiambu. Sawa sawa? Si ule kitendawili alikuwa prime minister. Si mimi nimekuwa deputy president ya Uhuru Kenyatta hapa Kiambu. Si tumejenga hapa kilomita 500 ya lami. Ni kweli ama si kweli?
Ile hesabu ya kitabu ni ngumu, lakini ile ya Mwenyezi Mungu alikupatia. Ile akili ya Mwenyezi Mungu peke yake. Wacha akili ya kitabu. Wewe jiulize, huyu mtu atapata wapi kura? Atapata kura kweli? Sisi tunamshinda kwa round 1.
Hii handshake na hii kuzimia na hiyo kitendawili wamepeleka maisha ya Mkenya wa kawaida juu. Na ndio tunawaambia rais na kitendawili na muradi yake lazima wakwenda nyumbani, tuongozwe na hasura mwenye yako hapa.
Mimi nataka niulize hawa wananchi, tuko kwa Kenya Kwanza ama tuko na mpango ya kando?
Hawa ni matapeli wa mwisho bure kabisa.
In Kiambu County, President Uhuru Kenyatta's backyard, Deputy President Ruto hit out at the Azimio leaders Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, accusing them of pretense.
Nimesikia wale majamaa wa kuzimia, wale watu wa tikiti ya madharau, ati wanajaribu kutusomea, ati tumuheshimu Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Mimi nataka niulize bwana kitendawili na Martha Karua.
Siku ile Uhuru Kenyatta alikuwa anahitaji watu wa kusimama na yeye na kumpigia kura. Nyinyi mlimpinga, nyinyi mlimwanzishia kesi, mlikuwa mnamtaka kumpeleka yeye. Sasa hivi mnajifanya ati nyinyi ni marafiki wa Uhuru Kenyatta. Shema leo. Bure kabisa. Wanataka rais wetu, wanamtakia mema na wanamkaribisha akuje hapa Kiambu, alitae na hawa, wakae na hawa. Ndio niliambia.
Wakenya hawataingia kwa madeni kwa njia ya kiholela, yani serikali inafuliza kimataifa na mwananchi anafuliza hapa chini.
Hata ule rais anayeondoka inaonekana ameona dalili ya mvua. Kwa sababu amemtoroka kibaraka wake, amemwambia wenda ujitetee kwa watu. Yeye amerudi nyuma. Mumeona wakitembea pamoja.
During the Kiambu meeting, legislators Moses Kuria and former Governor Kabogo both withdrew from the campaigns, claiming frustrations by the UDA party. The leaders claimed that UDA was out to frustrate their own campaigns. Kenya Kwanza will embark on Nairobi campaigns Sunday. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
The main reason why we ran that story was just to capture what happened in Kiambu yesterday, in as far as the divisions within Kenya Kwanza with affiliate parties. That's Chama Kazi for Moses Kuria's Chama Kazi and Tujibebe wa Kenya of Kabogo. And all indications is that things are not correct. Things are not as rosy within the Kenya Kwanza coalition, and similar happenings are also have also been reported within the Azimio coalition as well. That's what we want to discuss right now. The divisions within the affiliate parties within coalitions, because these coalitions came together for purposes of winning the election. They are expected to live longer than the election, beyond the election, even in the formation of government, and still to exist at least for 5 years until the next election cycle. But what's happening right now leaves a lot to be desired. And let me start off with Hezbon. There's so much that has been happening, and probably we've not captured this as much. There are indications that William Kabogo, Moses Kuria are not happy within the Kenya Kwanza coalition, and this is because the party that's the main party within the coalition, that's UDA, has been calling for a 6-piece voting system, which we discussed on this show, I think, a couple of weeks back. But now, what will happen to these coalitions if at all they start fighting at this point? And why the sibling rivalry at this point? Probably just paint a picture of the situation for us before we start this discussion. Hezbon.
Well, I think it's something that both coalitions have to struggle with, because at the top, most of these candidates, share a common goal to have a particular presidential candidate win. For the many gubernatorial candidates in Kiambu, for instance, you realize that all of them are in Kenya Kwanza, and they have one candidate that they would want to become the president. But at the gubernatorial level, they each want to win the war and become, the governors of Kiambu County. This is, like I'm saying, it's something that is happening everywhere. You go to Kisii, I think Azimio is having the same problem. You go to Kakamega, I think it's the same problem. Azimio has sorted its problem. It's not clear how it has sorted the other areas in Western region. But I think at the end of the day, it's a question of to what extent do you balance, the get out and vote effect of having your top candidates on the ballot and having these top candidates compete against themselves and create a pathway for a rival to win. I think in Kiambu, for instance, there's no doubt that the Kenya Kwanza candidates are fairly strong, and there are indications that because of the Kenya Kwanza coalition arrangement, which is a coalition of parties, and it is not a coalition party, so the Deputy President, William Ruto, will be contesting on an UDA party. And that definitely gives the UDA candidate, Senator Kimani Wamatangi, a head start, because he's on the same party as the presidential candidate. But there's a lot to that, because if you look at the other candidates, I mean, these are very strong Mount Kenya leaders. There's a subplot to the story that is going around, that it is a continuation of what happened in 2017, when the deputy president was alleged to have crafted, a strategy to knock out certain candidates who were perceived to be too powerful and a threat to his position. And I've had this hypothesis that to a large extent, I don't think Kenya Kwanza is in this to win, and I think they've since realized that, it's game over. The momentum is moving more towards Azimio. So even with the 50 days, it doesn't look like these 50 days are for Kenya Kwanza to recover. These are 50 days that they're losing ground each and every day. And you would actually understand the folks who are saying that maybe the heads of Moses Kuria, Governor Kabogo, because of the political clout that they wield and the fact that they have very powerful, political parties that are within Kenya Kwanza, there is a sense in which that perception that the deputy president is out to just finish those three, the Thika town member of parliament, who is also contesting, Moses Kuria, and Kabogo. But to a large extent, I mean, if they don't manage that well, for Kenya Kwanza, it's very easy for individuals who have political parties to withdraw their support.
Okay.
And that basically tells you that if they withdraw, whether they support Azimio or not, it's detrimental, to the momentum that the deputy president is doing.
I'm sure you would like to disagree with some of the sentiments that Hezbon has put forth. But a quick look at the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. It has captured a bit of what we're talking about, big names to quit in Ruto-Raila deals. And it talks about the kind of rivalry, intra-coalition rivalry that may force negotiated democracy just to have one person drop. Like, for example, under Azimio, what has been captured here is the Machakos governor's race, where we have Wavinya Ndeti versus Nzioka Waita. How will it play out? For Kenya Kwanza in Kilifi, Aisha Jumwa of UDA vis-a-vis versus George Kithi of the Power Party, and how that will play out. Kipchumba.
I think we are not visitors in this country. All of us have been here for a while, and we have participated in the democratization processes of the country. anytime you have a coalition of parties or an alliance of parties, you will have all these back and forth, because at the end of the day, whereas the party or the people agree on who becomes the overall candidate at the top, at the lower level, there are issues within which each person looks at it differently. There are also even independent candidates who support some of these big two tickets. So at the end of the day, in 2017, we did not have this much problem in Jubilee because Jubilee was one party. But there was an issue in Kirinyaga, if you remember, because when Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto went there to campaign, they could not even, Uhuru Kenyatta could not endorse the Jubilee candidate who was a governor, the sitting governor, Governor Waiguru. But at the end of the day, what we must ask for is that when you look at the coalition agreements deposited with the Registrar of Political Parties, is that there is a dispute resolution clause which every time there is a dispute is supposed to be activated. It is part of our cut and paste kind of a democracy. These are the teething problems we continue to face. And at a personal level, I do not advocate at any level as a serious Kenyan this six-piece kind of voting, because the six-piece kind of voting is what brought us Mike Sonko. It's what brought us Waititu here. So at the end of the day, we need to allow Kenyans to take their role and vote. If people agree that they support a presidential candidate at the highest level, allow them latitude at the lower level to vote for any leader, because at the end of the day, winning of an election, Fred, is about maximization of the voters. If voters come out and vote for two candidates from the same coalition, they'll split the votes and the weakest candidates will walk in. A case, for example, in Kiambu. If today Kenya Kwanza doesn't settle on a governor and they remain with 4 governors on the ticket, what stops Nyoro, the sitting governor who is in Azimio, from just consolidating 15% or 20% and winning the seat? So at the end of the day, we must really think through. And I think this is a question we must ask political strategists in each of these camps, that if they do not maximize on numbers, whatever has bedeviled CORD and NASA in 2017 in Nairobi, whereby they had clear seats they could have won, but due to intra-coalition sibling rivalry, they could not get the numbers. And what must not be lost in our viewers also, Fred, is that these small political parties are targeting the political parties fund, which is based on the number of votes garnered. So if you ask them to remove their candidate, it means they are reducing their numbers, the amount of money they'll get in the end of the day. But what each and every person must look at is that we must understand that these are political parties that came together for a common cause. We have dispute resolution clauses, and this issue of even saying vote for 6 years, it goes against the spirit of the same constitution, because at the end of the day, a party acknowledges that it has certain weaknesses in terms of political numbers. That is why it goes into an alliance with another party. So in going into alliances with other parties, there is something you must cede. For example, UDA, when Kenya Kwanza goes to Kiambu, it doesn't go to Kiambu as UDA, it goes there as Kenya Kwanza. So the understanding is that each political party within Kenya Kwanza is supposed to have a fair chance, intra-county politics notwithstanding, because if Kabogo or Kuria or Wamatangi want to have their personal campaign, they can do that differently, because as candidates on their own, they submitted their campaign schedule to IBC. So when the Wamatangi is doing that in his position as a Wamatangi, the UDA candidate, he is allowed. But in a national campaign where Kenya Kwanza is or where Azimio is, I think the platform should belong to all candidates, so that this small sibling rivalry can be neutered to the ground. And finally, if that does not hold, all these parties are allowed to go to the dispute resolution clause within the coalition agreements they deposited. Okay,
it's only 50 days to election day, and whether or not we have enough time for dispute resolution at this level is actually another question. But give it to Deputy President William Ruto. Initially, he was not keen on these coalitions. He wanted a strong party, UDA, just as Jubilee was. Dissolve all other parties if at all you want to work with me. And that was his mantra initially. Then he was forced by circumstances to accommodate some parties. So you really can't blame him when you see Rigathi Gachagua still just campaigning for UDA.
I think that's a strategy on their part where the presidential candidate focuses on the national Kenya Kwanza alliance campaign, and Rigathi seems to be the hatchet man to make sure UDA as a party secures as many seats as possible. And I think, in all fairness, nobody within the Kenya Kwanza alliance should desire that UDA does not campaign for itself. So I think strategically that works for me from a voter perspective. Let the presidential candidate focus on the national big picture, and let his running mate focus on rallying the UDA politicians and the UDA politicals to secure as many seats as possible. In my opinion, I think words are very important. Just the fact that the media is calling this sibling rivalry already paints a negative picture. This is just democracy at play, and democracy should allow for healthy competition. That's the only way the voters will have as many options as possible. So what, in my opinion, the siblings should do, the likes of Kabogo and Moses Kuria and any other party who are feeling a bit disgruntled, they have to redefine what is their party's agenda on the national platform and what is their party goal at the local level, and then play the game differently, trying to arm twist Kenya Kwanza into not fielding candidates or not doing this and that. I don't think it's healthy democratically, not even for the voters. But they need to be clear, why did they get into this relationship? What is the objective at the national level? And how do they want to play at the local level? And it is all right for them to even campaign separately. They don't have to wait for Kenya Kwanza Alliance to come campaign in Kiambu for them to campaign. They can do that separately, and it's all fair. I think, let us not, as media, let us not paint any competition from a negative side.
All these things come to us. We don't even go looking for them. This must, of course, this is happening across, and we've seen even what the Daily Nation is, the Sunday Nation is suggesting here, that probably some of this could force negotiated democracy at this level, where, for example, in Machakos, where we have Wavinya Ndeti of Wiper versus Nzioka Waita, both within the Azimio coalition, but he has his own party, that probably they will prevail upon one candidate to drop his bid or her bid for the sake of the other one. Do you think that this was thought out before, or it's just something that has happened now and they're wondering, okay, wow, how will we fight this fire?
Well, you've painted a very long-term picture, and there are pains and pleasures associated with coalition politics, whether it's a coalition of parties or whether it's a coalition party. Initially, what the party leaders wanted to do, their primary focus was to have a Kenya Kwanza, Azimio la Umoja, have an umbrella party or an umbrella coalition, and have a very strong presidential candidate. So having gone through, then now this is the second level, where every party leader wants to have as many seats as possible in all the electoral areas. For instance, Kalonzo would be very excited to have a Wiper governor in the 3 counties that he calls his base. Raila Odinga would like to have the same, but they've made a big mistake, because the reality on the ground in the Kenyan political space, voters as well as these leaders are telling Raila Odinga and William Samoei Ruto that stay focused on the top seats. They have been requested to take a decision whether they want to win the presidency or whether they want to have candidates all over. And in my view, because most of these parties did not even engage in credible internal party democracy, that's why you have so many independents, that's why you have many people with all the political parties. Like, for instance, and part of the reason why a number of these political party leaders did not want to dissolve their political parties and join maybe UDA or Azimio is because they don't trust these political party leaders. So in my view, in as much as the party leaders will take offense, we must go to the top of Mount Kenya or Mount Everest or Kilimanjaro and say that we cannot encourage 6-piece voting. Let people vote for whichever presidential candidate they want, but from the governor's position, let people exercise their freedom as they deem fit. Like, for instance, if you're coming from maybe Homa Bay, Migori, and there is Wanga and Kidero running, why should you be forced to vote? Why should you be forced to vote for an ODM candidate if, in fact, you think that the party primaries were not free, fair, or credible, or maybe they didn't even take place? That's why Kidero decided to run as an independent. So in my view, Kenyans must teach these politicians a lesson that they'll not always have their way, that their selfish interest will not always prevail. You've got many solid independent candidates everywhere. Let them meet the people. And the way Ken Matiba used to say, let the people decide.
Yes, Hezbon, but there are implications of that. If I told you, as Dismas suggests, that they should focus on at the national level, the presidential races, that's the party leaders and the presidential flag bearers, and leave the voters to decide everything else down here. But whether or not you win, things do change at the end because these coalitions are not just for pre-election. There's post-election implications as well. The numbers in Parliament, the numbers at the Council of Governors, the numbers at the Senate. That matters as well. You may win the presidential race and have a minority in Parliament with parties that you cannot control.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting what Dismas and Rita are pushing. And I'm sure there is no political party or coalition worth its salt that would get into an election with the mentality of let the people decide. I mean, this idea of thinking that democracy is about people queuing to vote, you know, and that is the alpha and omega of democracy should be disabused. You know, democracy is a system of governance where the power to govern is given by the governed. So the people can still give that power. But the people who are seeking that power have to be organized. I don't see a situation where you'd go to Kiambu with 6 strong candidates in the name of let the people decide and lose to Azimio because you're winning the presidency. I mean, that's a very idealistic way of looking at it. There's no political party that would think like that. I don't think Azimio, for instance, would agree to go to Kisii with the 4 strong candidates, knowing very well that the moment they do that, Honorable Machogu would just win very early in the day. They can't. You know, political parties and political formations are in the business of getting power, because it is when they have that power that they can effect their manifesto and deliver on the people. So there is no way you can let the people disenfranchise you as a political formation or as a political party because you're looking at let the people decide. I mean, it's a self-defeatist way of looking at it. So coming back to, I mean, the sibling rivalry, it is healthy, but it doesn't mean that sibling rivalry has to be squared by the people. These political parties have a mechanism, and it is in their own interest that they institute a mechanism to deal with the number of candidates within a certain political formation. But let me come back to why I think in certain areas it's very difficult. I like what Rita said, that the deputy president or presidential candidates should focus at the top, and then it is their running mates who should mop things around. So if a running mate of a principal goes and pushes for the candidates of that principal, we need to ask ourselves, what is the agenda? You know, and it's fairly easy to see how it is panning out and how quite difficult it is for the likes of Moses Kuria, you know, this MP who calls himself the jungle, Kabogo. Why? Because they wield political power that is almost, you know, bigger than the power that Rigathi Gachagua wields. So when you say that Rigathi Gachagua is supposed to go there and decide, you know, how people are supposed to be rallied around UDA, I think they sit back and they are thinking, wait a minute, we are in this coalition, and it's not a question of you know, one person being on top of us, you know. And there is a sense in which there are 2 things here that we may need to be alive to. One, Rigathi is looking at Moses Kuria and William Kabogo as rivals. And chances are even the deputy president is thinking, this thing in 2022 is gone. So 2027, who are the key guys? Who are the key guys who are likely to come and challenge me? And he's knocking their heads through this thing called sibling rivalry.
Okay, thank you, Hezbon. Kipchumba. Okay. It's his opinion. It's his opinion.
I think Awila is
it's 50 days to the election. I think I can allow him to have that. But Kipchumba, should Kenya Kwanza just let the people decide, and the numbers, whatever comes out at the end, you'll work with that?
We have to look at democracy from a practical point, not from the Hezbon Awila point of view. And I'm surprised 1 year ago, the man was a Democrat. He's turning to be a dictator. Is this the problem of being in a Nusumkata government? I don't know. But he was a good man when I left. Back to the germane discussion. The issue of sibling rivalry, whereas it is healthy for a growing democracy, we cannot mix two issues. There are issues that political coalitions can sort as internal housekeeping issues, and then there are issues that are macro level for the democracy and the growth of a nation. When we talk about sibling rivalry, it is good for the growth of democracy as a nation, so that people, the more people come and vote for different candidates, it means we are entertaining different ideas. But when we reduce it to the micro level of the political parties, these parties are formed to win elections. Political party manifesto can only be implemented by members of that political party. So at this lower level, political parties must or should put in place strategies that enable it to maximize on the voters and make sure that they get as many seats as possible. And that's why most of these political parties have a function known as internal polling, where they see in this coalition, these and these candidates are not strong. They should cede ground for this. And that has been done by UDA. In Vihiga County, for example, Mwenesi, the UDA candidate, ceded ground to Adagala, the ANC candidate. It has been done in all other these places, because in Kenya Kwanza, the strategy is maximize on the votes and make sure that we win as many as possible seats, so that the bottom-up economic model can be brought to birth by the parliament of the day. So, whereas I agree that democracy cannot be about ideals, but about practical solutions that impact on the people at the end of the day. But also, we must not allow the thinking of Esbondo Wheeler that one leader should beat others their head so that they do not have. Everybody has an ambition. And as far as I'm concerned, as a member of UDA, it is not the business of Rigathi Gachagua to reduce other people to size. His role at the moment is to be the deputy president for the coalition. Those are the things of why we should not mix the kingship of Mount Kenya and the deputy president of Kenya Kwanza. Those are two different variables. They might have a constant here and there because the constant is the Mount Kenya people, but at the end of the day, the variables have to be looked at from where they fall.
Okay, thank you for that, Wakili. Let's take another break. When we come back, we'll discuss something that's going to be a major headline this coming week.